Hello everyone, this is the latest episode in My Methods. In this case, because I've had several questions from viewers and also from my own apprentice about tailoring to different body types, particularly the gentleman of the fuller figure, the prominent citizen, shall we say. So when we do this, because again, we're not, in tailoring, we're not hiding, we're not changing, we are accentuating and making more perfect what the customer already has. So, and we deal with this with tact and dignity and politeness and everything else, right? So, as such, and when I say this, there are several different body types to deal with. And we're very lucky in this case that we've got Rob Morris, my old friend and former business partner from time past, and if we can see, he's a fine, stalwart gentleman. If you could just give us a profile, turn to the side just for a second, because we have different body types to deal with. Rob is proportional. We've got nothing really overbalances the other. The worst, or rather the most challenging body type is the fellow who's like a capital letter P, who's got the male pattern girth and then skinny legs and no bum. That is hell to tailor for. Fortunately, we're not dealing with that in this case. Eventually, I'm going to find a way to tactfully get a fellow of that body type so that I can show you how we're going to measure that and how we're going to deal with that. But that'll be a topic for another episode. So now tape measures are generally, as again, we always measure somebody in their trouser and their shirts. And the tape measure, generally, they come in 120 inches, which is 10 feet. I often shorten them to 8 feet or so. But you must know your customer beforehand so that if he's of the larger size, you're going to surreptitiously switch out your tape measures because it's going to be rather embarrassing to pass the tape measure around him and it's not long enough. It leads to an awkward moment, right? So I've got my longer tape measure on one side where I can just, if I'm passing around, if I did a bad estimate and I'm putting the tape measure around and then realize, whoops, I'm going to pretend to fumble and drop the tape measure and then switch out for the longer one just to prevent some embarrassment and such like that. Now it's pretty much taking the person's measurements is pretty much the same as my earlier video of using my measurement system. But because as a figure becomes more prominent, some of those basic relationships change in the body. So often it's, to go on the safe side, I will measure to the body rather than to the rule of thumb. So I start with the waist, and if this gentleman is of a particularly generous girth, it's been like passing a choker around a log if you've ever worked in the woods. It can lead to an embarrassing moment when there's been times I've attempted to put a weight on the thing and throw it around the gentleman. That's not a good moment. So in the more dramatic cases, I might just discreetly ask the fellow, "Would you mind holding that there as I walk around," and such like that. So I'm measuring at the same spot at the natural waist, which is about where his short ribs are. And that's 52 inches, 52 and a half inches. Now looking sideways, pardon me, turn sideways again, please. He's got a proportional behind, but it's a bit higher than you see in other figures. So I'm measuring that as well. I'm going to block, this is going to be a bad bit of blocking as I come around to the side like that, but same thing, I'm measuring to the widest point of the seat, but remember his pelvis is on a bit of an angle here, so I'm dropping the tape so it's horizontal. In this case we have 56. The reason why I use, some people get hot under the collar about metric versus imperial. Imperial is easier for me because an inch is exactly the width of my thumb. It's possibly it's the way I was trained, but I just find inches more convenient to work with when doing tailoring. There's other things I use metric or whatever. So there's those two measurements. Now, when am I stepping forward just half a pace because we got this chair here. So turn this way. Now for this measurement, I've marked in my mind's eye, although I wouldn't be afraid to use a bit of chalk if need be, to the top of the natural waist. And in this case, generally I tend to, sorry, is that the top of your kneecap right there? Okay. Generally I shoot to the top, I aim for the top of the kneecap. But in this build, I'm going to go to the middle of the kneecap because of the proportion here. It's going to make the cloth look higher in the back, and we want to avoid that. That's not a good look. So our length is 20, I'm going to say 26 inches. And our fell is 8 inches. Now with that fell, instead of to the widest point of the seat, I'm measuring a little bit lower. And because what I'm going to be doing with this is taking these measurements away, laying out some cloth with my apprentice, Mr. McIntosh, and walking him through the process. Because he couldn't be here, otherwise, he'd be assisting me with this. And incidentally, I should add it at the beginning, as I'm doing this, it's best if I have an apprentice sitting taking the notes as I'm reading the numbers to him. So from this, again, we've got the measurements. I'm also going to take pictures from front and side, and then I take that away. I'm going to be showing my apprentice as how we're going to lay out the cloth from there. When I get the time, I'll shoot a video to show you exactly how the considerations we make when we're laying out the cloth. Now, so the concerns we have, because he's got a proportional figure. It's everything's in balance, right? But because we have the rather high backside, we do have to make an accommodation for that so the kilt doesn't look like it's leaning forward and it's longer at the front. So I'll be showing you how we accomplish that. So thank you, stay safe, keep your masks on, wash your darn hands. Cheers.